This is the reorganization plan. Honestly, I expected more.
Sir, if you review the data on page 3, the projections are sound.
Honestly, I don't know how you survive here, he said, leaning against the doorway. His voice was calm, but it carried the sharp edge of judgment. Lazy, that's all I see. Her fingers froze mid-typing. Her heart thudded, not out of fear, but disbelief. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer. The other employees pretended not to hear, their silence louder than any defense. She swallowed, her throat dry. "Excuse me." Her voice was steady, but her chest tightened. "Don't play innocent," he snapped, the corner of his mouth curling into a smirk. "I see you scrolling, chatting, never actually leading. You might think you're working. You're not. You're lazy." She wanted to explode. Instead, she leaned back, eyes on him, letting the words sink into the air between them. The whispers in her head, doubt, anger, resolve, swirled. Somewhere in the corner, a colleague shifted nervously. She caught the subtle eye roll of another. The tension in the room was palpable. She realized then, this wasn't about her work. It never was. "Fine," she said, quieter than she intended. "We'll see who's really lazy." He laughed, dismissive, and turned to leave. But as the door clicked shut behind him, her phone pinged, a calendar alert, a meeting she wasn't ready for. And just like that, the balance of power was about to tilt. Cliffhanger, he didn't know she was ready to take over, and the first move would shock everyone. The office smelled like burnt coffee and printer ink. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, cursor blinking, waiting for the next report to be finalized. A sudden shadow fell across her desk. "Honestly, I don't know how you survive here," he said. Leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Lazy, that's all I see." She froze. A knot tightened in her stomach. The murmurs of colleagues sounded distant, like underwater echoes. Their silence screamed louder than any defense. What?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. He leaned closer, eyes scanning the spreadsheet. "Don't act like you don't know what I mean. I see you scrolling, chatting, never actually leading. You might think you're working. You're not. Lazy." A chair scraped behind her. She looked up. Her teammate avoided eye contact. Another bit her lip. Everyone was watching, no one stepping in. She exhaled slowly. "Fine," she said softly, more to herself than to him. "We'll see who's really lazy." He laughed, sharp and dismissive. "I'll be watching. Try not to embarrass yourself." The rest of the morning passed in a haze. Emails sent, calls answered, reports updated. Her work was flawless, but she could feel the invisible barrier he drew around her. The whispered judgments. The office's collective breath, waiting for her to slip. At lunch, she overheard him talking to another manager. "She's smart, but lazy. Always looking busy. Can't trust her with leadership." His words cut deeper than any raised voice. She clenched her fists under the table. Her heart pounded with frustration and resolve. She knew she had to act, but she also knew the system was stacked against her. Back at her desk, she noticed a file misfiled on his desk, one he shouldn't have misplaced. Something about it triggered a thought, a plan forming in her mind. She would not stay silent. As she opened her laptop, a notification flashed, an upcoming meeting with executives, one she hadn't been informed about. Her pulse quickened. The office lights flickered briefly. The hum of fluorescent bulbs seemed louder. She realized he had no idea what was coming. She did. Cliffhanger, her fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type the first move in a game he would regret playing. The morning sun had barely crept through the office windows when she arrived, coffee in hand, already scanning the inbox for errors, gaps, anything to prove herself before anyone else could. The weight of yesterday's accusation, lazy, still clung to her like an unwelcome shadow. Her manager was nowhere in sight, but she could feel his presence in every corner, in the subtle tightening of co-workers' shoulders, in the way the office air seemed thinner around her. Every click of the keyboard, every page she turned, felt like a silent declaration. She was not lazy. "Morning," she whispered to a colleague, keeping her voice light, even though her chest still felt tight. "Morning," they muttered back, eyes flicking nervously toward the manager's office. She nodded and returned to work. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, charts assembling, reports updating. She moved with quiet precision, keeping her focus while aware of every judgmental glance. Every completed task was another small victory, invisible but significant. The manager appeared then, emerging from the elevator like a storm cloud. He didn't say hello. He didn't need to. His gaze landed on her, sharp, evaluating, predatory. Working hard, or just pretending? His voice cut through the office. She looked up, calm, controlled. "I'm ahead on all my reports," she said. "Deadlines are covered." He smirked, like a shark circling prey. "Ahead, hey. Funny how I didn't see that yesterday. Or the day before. Or the week before. You must have a talent for hiding." Her jaw clenched. "I've been handling everything you've assigned. If something slipped your attention, maybe it wasn't me who missed it." A silence fell across the office, thick and uncomfortable. She felt the familiar pulse of judgment, the quiet consensus that she was somehow out of place. His eyes narrowed. He opened his mouth, then closed it, muttering something under his breath. "You're trying," he said finally, voice low, almost mocking. "But trying isn't enough." She let her hands rest on the keyboard, taking a breath. Every fiber of her body screamed to respond, to call him out for the microaggressions, for the subtle dismissals. But she knew the rules of this game. Office politics, institutional bias, they were weapons sharper than any insult. She had to move carefully, strategically. By mid-morning, she had discovered something. A spreadsheet the manager had misplaced. It wasn't just an accident. The data had been hidden, perhaps intentionally, to make him look better in front of executives. Her pulse quickened. This was her opening. A way to prove her worth without giving him the satisfaction of confrontation. She opened the file, scanning through hundreds of rows of figures. Mistakes, hidden bonuses, unreported client complaints. He had been covering for himself while blaming the team. Her mind raced. Every potential consequence, every chain reaction, was clear. One wrong move, and it could all blow back on her. The manager's voice interrupted her thoughts. "Looking busy again," he said, peering over her shoulder. She didn't flinch. "Just checking some numbers," she replied calmly. "Noticed some inconsistencies in last week's reports." His eyebrows shot up. "Inconsistencies? Are you implying I'm wrong?" She smiled, neutral. "I'm saying the data doesn't match the reports submitted. Maybe we should review it together." A pause. He blinked. Then, a laugh, forced, sharp. "Review with me? Don't be ridiculous. I handle this office. You handle your desk. Stick to what you know." She nodded, internally noting everything. His arrogance, his dismissal, the way he assumed authority without accountability. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle she would use later. Her colleagues whispered to each other in the break room, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Some offered subtle encouragement, a nod, a glance, a half-smile. It was small, but it mattered. Allies existed, even if they were hidden behind the veil of fear. By afternoon, tension thickened. The manager had called an impromptu team meeting, his favorite tactic to intimidate and control. She sat at the back, letting him speak first, carefully observing reactions. His voice rose and fell, critiquing, mocking, implying failures she hadn't committed. Every word felt like a test. She resisted the urge to defend herself immediately. Silence was her shield, strategy her weapon. After he left the room, the quiet returned, but it was different now. She could feel it, the subtle shift in dynamics. Colleagues had noticed her composure, her precision. They had seen him falter, even slightly, in front of her. It wasn't much, but it was progress. Her phone vibrated. An email from HR. She froze. The subject line, follow-up required. Her stomach tightened. Had the manager reported her? Or worse, had he twisted the truth already? She opened it, carefully reading the first lines. It wasn't a reprimand. It was a request, a meeting to discuss her recent work, with an emphasis on team dynamics. A test, a probe. She would have to navigate it carefully. As she closed her laptop, she glanced at the manager's office. The door was open, but he wasn't inside. Yet, she felt his gaze, imagined or real, pressing down on her. She straightened her back, squared her shoulders, and inhaled deeply. This wasn't just about proving herself anymore. It was about exposing the truth, protecting her career, and standing against the subtle, but relentless, abuse of authority that had defined her office for too long. The day dragged on. Each click, each page turned, each phone call answered, was a silent act of resistance. She had learned to move under the radar, to be precise, methodical, careful. And yet, She also knew this was only the beginning. As she packed her bag at the end of the day, a colleague whispered, "You saw the error, right? The one he missed." She nodded. "Yes. And it's going to matter." The lights flickered as she exited the office. Her mind raced through strategies, contingencies, and possibilities. The manager didn't know she had the leverage now. She was ready for the next move. Cliffhanger. The next morning, a file appears on her desk, one she knows could expose everything if she dares open it. She arrived early the next morning, the office still hushed, the smell of brewed coffee sharp in the air. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her eyes kept drifting to the folder she had spotted the day before, the manager's misplaced report. It wasn't just a spreadsheet. It was a map of negligence, a record of errors, bonuses misallocated, and client complaints carefully buried. Each page screamed of dishonesty, each line a thread she could pull to unravel his authority. "Morning," a colleague muttered, passing by. Their glance lingered, subtle but loaded with unspoken questions. She nodded, heart hammering. Her manager appeared suddenly, as if summoned by her thoughts. "What are you looking at so intently?" His voice carried the familiar sharp edge of suspicion. "Just checking reports," she said softly, opening a blank spreadsheet on her screen. "Keeping up with deadlines." He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Make sure you're not spending too much time checking other people's work. Focus on your own." She smiled faintly, neutral, letting him think she hadn't noticed. Every second he lingered, every glance he threw, added fuel to her resolve. By mid-morning, she couldn't wait any longer. She pulled the folder onto her desk, flipping through the pages methodically. Mistakes he had covered up. Projects delayed. Promises to clients ignored. Bonuses shifted to mask underperformance. The weight of the evidence made her stomach twist with disbelief and anticipation. A tap on her shoulder made her jump. She turned to see a junior colleague, hesitating. I noticed something in that folder yesterday. Thought you might want to double-check." She gave a small nod, grateful but cautious. "Thanks. I already started reviewing. It's revealing." The manager's voice boomed from the corner office. "Hey, what are you doing?" Her colleague froze. She clenched her jaw. "Just organizing my tasks." He stomped over, looming, chest forward, his glare slicing through the office. "Organizing? Or snooping?" She held his gaze. "I'm preparing for upcoming deadlines. Efficiency matters, doesn't it?" He scoffed. "Efficiency isn't pretending to know more than you should." A small group of coworkers had gathered silently, drawn by the tension. Whispers passed through the office like a current of electricity. Eyes darted between them, between the manager and her, measuring the unspoken power struggle. She continued flipping through the folder. Each page she read confirmed the same pattern: manipulation, favoritism, errors hidden to maintain an illusion of competence. He had been using the office like a stage, and everyone else as props. "Why are you looking at my files?" he demanded, voice rising. "Do you think you're some kind of authority now?" She kept her voice calm, precise. "I'm just reviewing the data. Accuracy matters. You'd agree, right?" He froze. For a moment, something flickered in his expression: annoyance, fear, maybe even recognition that she was seeing what no one else had. But he masked it with a forced laugh. "Fine. Just don't overstep. You're lucky I don't report this." Her fingers itched to speak, to expose him then and there, but restraint was key. HR, legal protocols, the chain of command, they were her allies if she played carefully. By lunch, she had compiled a preliminary report of discrepancies. She emailed it to herself, encrypted, timestamped. Each click felt like a quiet rebellion. She leaned back in her chair, trying to calm her racing heart. This was bigger than personal revenge. This was about justice, about exposing the subtle abuse of power that had governed her office for too long. Her manager returned unexpectedly. "Working on the Thompson project, I hope," he said, glancing over her shoulder at the folder. "Yes," she replied evenly. "I'm making sure everything aligns. Accuracy is important, isn't it?" He didn't answer. His eyes lingered on the folder, a flicker of unease crossing his face. He turned abruptly, leaving the office with heavy steps. The room exhaled. Her colleagues exchanged subtle smiles, small acknowledgments that she had begun to shift the balance. But she knew the danger wasn't gone. By afternoon, HR sent an email. "We've noticed some irregularities in departmental reports. Please prepare a summary for review." Her heart skipped a beat. The folder. Her discovery. Everything was now in motion. She realized the stakes had escalated beyond office whispers and small slights. One wrong move, and she could be accused of overstepping, of disloyalty, of sabotage. But done correctly, she could expose the manager's negligence without risking herself. She glanced at her computer screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Every thought was tactical, every sentence in her mind a calculated strike. The manager had underestimated her. Everyone had. By the end of the day, she had printed a clean copy of her findings, careful to note dates, facts, and discrepancies. She slipped it into a folder marked for her own eyes first, planning the next step. Allies would need proof. HR would need clarity. And he would not see it coming. As she packed her bag, a colleague whispered, half nervous, half excited, "You've got him. The numbers don't lie. You've got everything." She smiled faintly, a mix of relief and resolve. It's not over. But it's a start. Walking out of the office, the setting sun painted long shadows across the parking lot. The building loomed behind her, a fortress of authority and bureaucracy. And somewhere inside, the manager sat unaware that his empire of control had cracks, small at first, but widening with every report she compiled, every silent act of resistance. Cliffhanger, tomorrow, HR will call a meeting. She knows the manager will try to manipulate the narrative. But she also knows she has evidence that could change everything, if she has the courage to act. The conference room smelled of stale coffee and polished wood. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She stepped inside, folder in hand, heart beating a little faster than usual. HR had called an emergency meeting, a rare occurrence, and never a good sign when the manager was involved. He was already there, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug smile on his face. His presence dominated the room, the unspoken power of authority pressing down on everyone. "Ah, there you are," he said smoothly. "Ready to present?" Her fingers tightened around the folder. "Yes. I've prepared a summary of departmental data for review." HR glanced at her, eyebrows slightly raised. "We want clarity on recent reports and any discrepancies." The manager shifted in his seat, leaning forward now, eyes narrow. "Discrepancies? I think you're overstating things. We all know how thorough I am. No one's perfect, but let's not exaggerate." She took a deep breath, voice calm but precise. "The discrepancies are documented. Dates, figures, communications. The reports in question show delayed projects, misallocated bonuses, and misreported client feedback." The room went still. HR scribbled notes, glancing between the manager and her. He opened his mouth, then closed it. She sensed the hesitation, the first crack in his armor. "You're implying I'm incompetent," he said finally, tone sharp. "I'm implying the records need attention," she replied evenly. "Accuracy matters for the team and the company. Oversight affects everyone, not just a single department." A colleague shifted in their seat, whispering softly, "Finally." She ignored it, focusing on the room. He leaned closer, lowering his voice, eyes fixed on hers. "Be careful. You don't want to make this personal. I control the narrative here." Her pulse quickened, but she didn't flinch. "I'm only presenting facts. The narrative is your choice." HR cleared their throat. "Let's keep this professional. We're here to assess the reports objectively. Let's review the details." As she handed over the folder, he tried to snatch it. Quick reflexes. She pulled it back gently, maintaining eye contact. HR noticed, pen pausing mid-note. "Hands off," she said softly, but firmly. The authority in her tone startled everyone, even the manager. He hesitated, scowling. "Fine. But don't think this gives you leverage." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Not leverage. Clarity." Page by page, she walked HR through the discrepancies, the hidden errors, and the manager's attempts to misrepresent progress. Every line she read, every example she pointed out, revealed his negligence. His smug demeanor faltered. Every misstep, every omitted detail, made him smaller in the room. He tried to interrupt multiple times. "That's misleading," he snapped. "Those issues aren't critical. You're exaggerating." She remained calm, precise. "These aren't exaggerations. The records are clear. Projects delayed, communications ignored, bonuses misapplied. Facts, not opinion." A tense silence followed. HR exchanged glances, nodding subtly. The manager's confidence wavered, replaced by visible frustration. You're attacking me," he said finally, voice rising. "This isn't just data. You're trying to undermine me." "I'm not attacking anyone," she replied. I'm presenting evidence for review. The impact of these errors affects the entire department, not one person. The room felt charged, every employee watching, every eye alert. Microtensions flared like sparks: fear, relief, anticipation. Allies subtly nodded, whispers of support passing silently. HR leaned back, taking in everything. We'll need to conduct a further review based on these findings. Both parties will be asked to provide additional information. For now, this is preliminary. The manager's face flushed with anger, but he masked it with forced composure. I see how it is. You're all against me, trying to turn the room. She met his glare evenly. I'm not against anyone. I'm for transparency and accountability. He scoffed, muttering under his breath as he left the room, but the shake in his steps betrayed him. She watched him go, a quiet thrill running through her. The first cracks in his control were showing. HR remained after he left. You handled that well, they said. We'll need copies of all supporting documentation for review. Thank you for your professionalism. She exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders finally loosening. But she knew better than to celebrate too soon. Institutional bias didn't vanish in one meeting. Authority didn't crumble overnight. Her colleague, who had been quietly observing, whispered, You did it. You actually did it. She smiled faintly, trying to suppress the adrenaline. It's not done. Just started. As she packed her bag, a new email popped into her inbox, marked urgent, from an internal whistleblower system. A notification hinted at another document, evidence the manager had tried to hide for months. Her stomach tightened. The stakes were higher now. One wrong step, one misjudged word, and she could be accused of overstepping, or worse, retaliation could be framed against her. She glanced at the empty conference room, imagining his return, imagining the power he thought he still held. The truth had momentum now, and she was at the center. Cliffhanger. The document from the whistleblower contained sensitive information, something that could end the manager's career if she used it correctly. But opening it might trigger retaliation immediately. The morning was quiet, almost deceptively calm. She arrived early, the sunlight cutting through the blinds, illuminating the dust motes that danced above her desk. Her folder rested in her bag, carefully organized, evidence tucked away for careful use. Today wasn't about confrontation yet. Today was about building support. Her first stop was the break room. A few colleagues lingered, coffee cups in hand, eyes flicking toward her as she entered. She gave a small nod. Morning, she said softly. Morning, a young analyst replied, voice barely above a whisper. He shifted nervously. I wanted to ask, about yesterday. The reports you showed HR, that was impressive. She smiled faintly, hiding the rush of adrenaline. Thanks. But it's not enough to impress. I need witnesses, people who've seen the pattern over time. He nodded, hesitant. I've noticed. But, I can't really speak up alone. She leaned in, voice low. You're not alone. If several of us speak together, it's harder to ignore. Small steps first. The day moved slowly. She made careful inquiries, asking colleagues if they'd noticed mismanagement, errors hidden, favoritism shown. Each answer was small, cautious, but collectively they formed a mosaic. The manager had been abusing authority for months, quietly, systematically. By mid-morning, she had arranged a private meeting with a few trusted co-workers. In a quiet corner, she spread out copies of reports and discrepancies, highlighting areas where he had mismanaged projects or manipulated data. See this, she asked, pointing. These errors aren't random. He's been covering up failures and shifting blame. We can't fix everything alone, but we can make it visible. A colleague shifted, nervous. If we do this, he'll know. Retaliation. HR might not protect us. She nodded, eyes serious. I know the risks. That's why we move carefully, document everything. We're not attacking anyone personally. We're presenting facts. Transparency is protection. Another colleague added quietly. I've seen him take credit for our work and push blame for mistakes that weren't ours. If we speak up, it could finally stop. She felt a surge of hope. Allies mattered. Even small support could tip the balance. Later, in the office, subtle signs of power shifted. The manager walked past her desk, fuming silently, sensing something had changed. He scowled at a whispered conversation between two team members and muttered under his breath. They are conspiring. She noticed his agitation, storing it in her mind for later. Control was fragile. Authority could crack when enough people knew the truth. By afternoon, She had prepared a coordinated timeline of events, documenting favoritism, mismanagement, and microaggressions. Each page was meticulous. Each note, precise. She emailed copies to herself, carefully encrypted. Allies had copies too, but everyone remained discreet. One colleague whispered in the hallway, "You've done more than anyone else dared. But, he's dangerous. Watch your back." She nodded, inwardly acknowledging the warning. Danger was part of the game. Fear was present, but it wouldn't paralyze her. The manager's presence became increasingly oppressive by the end of the day. He lingered near her desk, hands on his hips, eyes scanning, trying to intimidate. But she didn't flinch. She continued typing, ignoring his shadow, letting her calm precision contrast with his restless energy. "Working late again?" he asked, voice sharp. "Or just pretending to stay busy?" "Just finishing priorities," she replied evenly. "Deadlines won't manage themselves." He scoffed, turning away, muttering under his breath. "Always overcomplicating things." She allowed herself a quiet smile as she packed her things. Allies were ready. Documentation was ready. HR had been briefed, even if only indirectly. The power dynamics had shifted subtly but irrevocably. Outside, she met another trusted colleague by the elevators. "We're ready," they whispered. "If you lead, we'll follow. Just say the word." Her heart pounded. This was no longer a silent rebellion. This was a coordinated effort, a collective challenge to authority. As she rode the elevator down, she imagined the manager returning to his office, unaware that the office had quietly united against his manipulation. Small acts of resistance had begun to create cracks in his armor. Her phone buzzed. A message from an anonymous source. "Check the HR portal tonight." Something he tried to hide, dates, documents, emails. "Could be what we need." She paused, her pulse quickening. The evidence was growing. Allies were in place. The stage was set. But one wrong move, one exposure too soon, could ruin everything. Cliffhanger, that evening, she logged into the HR portal. A hidden folder appeared, emails, memos, approvals, documents he thought were secret. She hesitated. Opening them now could either secure justice or trigger retaliation immediately. The office buzzed with a nervous energy. She arrived early, coffee in hand, the weight of the hidden HR folder heavy in her bag. Every step through the hallways felt calculated, each glance over her shoulder measuring the manager's presence, even if he wasn't there yet. By mid-morning, the manager appeared, more irritable than usual. He strode past her desk, jaw tight, muttering to himself. "They're all conspiring," he said under his breath, loud enough for a few nearby colleagues to catch. She didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop, fingers hovering over the HR portal. Emails, memos, approvals. The hidden evidence lay there like a loaded trap, waiting to be triggered. He leaned over her desk suddenly. "What are you doing?" His tone was sharp, almost threatening. "Preparing for upcoming deadlines," she said evenly. "Making sure all projects are accurate." He snorted. "Accuracy? Or snooping again? You spend too much time poking around." "I'm not poking," she replied, calm. "I'm documenting. Transparency benefits the team." A small group of co-workers watched silently. Whispers filled the air, tension thick enough to touch. Eyes darted, waiting to see who would break first. The manager's chest puffed, dominance on display, but she noticed his hands tremble slightly. A crack in the armor. By noon, rumors had begun to circulate. The manager was trying to preemptively discredit her, spreading false information, claims that she was overstepping, that she was undermining authority, that she had gone behind his back. Microaggressions escalated, snide comments, pointed glances, exclusion from meetings. "Don't think your little evidence will change anything," he said under his breath as he passed. "You'll regret this." She didn't flinch. Each threat only strengthened her resolve. The stakes had escalated. She wasn't just documenting errors anymore. She was preparing a shield of facts, allies, and procedural correctness. Late that afternoon, a trusted colleague approached her desk. "I found something," they whispered, sliding a folder across. It's the promotion plan he tried to hide. Bonuses, assignments, promotions, all manipulated to favor himself and his friends. Her pulse quickened. This was gold. But dangerous. Revealing it too soon could provoke retaliation. Waiting too long risked losing momentum. She reviewed the documents, careful not to breathe too loudly. Each line confirmed months of manipulation, favoritism, and abuse of authority. Her eyes scanned names, dates, emails, evidence that could topple him if presented correctly. Her manager appeared again, pacing near the window, unaware she now had access to this new layer of proof. "Working late?" he asked, voice deceptively casual. "Just finishing my priorities," she replied, neutral. "Deadlines won't manage themselves." He scowled. "You're always trying to impress someone, always calculating." "I'm trying to ensure the team succeeds," she said softly, hiding the thrill of leverage building. By evening, she compiled everything into a master folder: mismanaged reports, hidden emails, the secret promotion plan, documented favoritism. Each document labeled, dated, and time-stamped. Allies had copies discreetly, ready for HR review when the moment was right. She leaned back, exhaustion and adrenaline intertwining. The manager's influence had escalated. His attempts at sabotage and intimidation were more aggressive than ever. Microaggressions had become overt, rumors had taken root, and she could feel the tension in the office like a storm on the horizon. Her phone buzzed, a secure message from HR. "We noticed irregularities. Prepare to submit supporting documents for review. Don't share outside the department." Her stomach twisted. The trap was set. The manager might retaliate, escalate, or attempt to preemptively discredit her. But the advantage had shifted. Evidence, allies, procedural correctness, they were on her side. She glanced at her computer, contemplating the next move. Every decision now carried weight. One wrong click, one exposed email, could ruin everything. Yet hesitation was worse. Momentum mattered. Timing mattered. Cliffhanger, that night, she reviewed the secret promotion plan again, realizing it contained a crucial email, the one that could force HR to act immediately. But accessing it would alert the manager. She had to decide, act now, or wait for the perfect opportunity. The conference room smelled of polished wood and tension. Light spilled through blinds, casting stripes across the polished table. Today, everything would come to a head. HR had called a formal review meeting. Executives, the manager, herself, and a handful of trusted colleagues were present. Her manager arrived first, posture rigid, jaw tight. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He knew something had shifted, though he couldn't name it yet. "Good morning," he said, voice smooth, controlled. "Let's get this over with." She returned a neutral nod, placing her meticulously organized folder on the table. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge, ready to guide HR through every document. HR opened the meeting. "We're reviewing departmental reports, inconsistencies, and allegations of favoritism. We expect professionalism from everyone involved." The manager leaned forward, trying to dominate the space. "I assure you, any discrepancies are minor. This is unnecessary scrutiny." She spoke, calm, measured. "The discrepancies are not minor. They are systematic. Projects delayed, misallocated bonuses, and emails hidden from management all demonstrate a pattern of negligence and favoritism." He scoffed. "Negligence? You're exaggerating. You've taken these documents out of context." Her gaze was steady. "The context is clear. The records, emails, and reports are dated, verified, and unaltered. I've ensured accuracy for transparency." Her colleagues shifted slightly, subtle but supportive. Eyes met hers across the table, conveying unspoken solidarity. "You think you're some kind of hero," he snapped, voice rising. "I built this department. I know every detail better than anyone. You can't." HR cut him off, calm but firm. "Please, allow the evidence to speak for itself." Page by page, she presented the discrepancies. Every hidden email, every mismanaged bonus, every client complaint that had been buried, laid bare. Each revelation chipped away at the manager's authority. His face tightened, his usual composure cracking. He tried to interject, but HR held firm. "We will hear her fully before any response." A slip, a crucial email she had found, sealed the moment. It clearly showed him approving manipulations for personal gain, bypassing proper protocol. The room went silent. HR scribbled notes, glancing at her, nodding subtly. The manager's confidence faltered. He leaned back, breathing hard, trying to regain control. This is misleading. You're framing this as intentional." She stayed calm, letting the facts do the work. The emails, reports, and approvals speak for themselves. Intent isn't assumed. Facts are presented for review. Patterns are clear. HR spoke, voice precise. "We will need to conduct further investigation based on this evidence. The manager's actions will be reviewed, and any disciplinary measures considered. This concludes the preliminary review for now." The manager sat back, defeated, but trying to mask it with a controlled glare. He muttered something under his breath about unfair treatment, but his authority had clearly waned. Her colleagues exchanged subtle nods. Allies she had quietly gathered over weeks had been present, their silent support reinforcing her position. She felt a wave of relief, though adrenaline still pulsed in her veins. As the meeting concluded, HR whispered to her, "You handled that exceptionally. Documentation and composure were key. We'll follow up." The manager left the room abruptly, muttering under his breath, shoulders stiff, hands trembling. His empire of control had begun to crumble. She exhaled slowly, chest tightening with fatigue and triumph. The office felt lighter somehow, charged with subtle hope. Microaggressions hadn't ended, but the imbalance of power had shifted irrevocably. As she gathered her things, a colleague approached. "You did it," they whispered. "I've never seen him falter like that. You exposed him." She smiled faintly. "Not done yet. Evidence alone isn't enough. We follow through, carefully." Back at her desk, she opened the secure HR portal once more. The hidden emails and approvals from the manager glowed on the screen. The next steps were delicate, but the momentum was now firmly in her hands. Cliffhanger, that evening, HR sent a direct message. Prepare all supporting documentation. A formal decision could happen at any time. The manager may respond unpredictably. She realized that the next move could either end his career or spark a desperate retaliation. The office was unusually quiet that morning. Word had spread that HR was reviewing the evidence she had meticulously compiled. Colleagues stole glances at her as she entered, subtle nods and half-smiles of encouragement. The tension was tangible, everybody knew something big was coming. She opened her laptop, scanning the secure HR portal. Emails, memos, approvals, the hidden documents glowed on her screen. Each file a nail in the coffin of the manager's authority. He arrived mid-morning, striding through the office as if he owned it. His gaze swept the room, settling on her. He had the usual smugness, but there was a flicker of unease she hadn't seen before. "You're early," he said, voice deceptively casual. "Planning to dig through more of my files?" She met his gaze evenly. "Just reviewing my own work. Deadlines don't wait." He scoffed. "Right. Of course. Always trying to be clever, aren't you?" She didn't respond. Cleverness had nothing to do with it. Accuracy, diligence, and truth had everything to do with it. By late morning, HR had scheduled an emergency meeting with the executive team. The manager was summoned to present explanations for the discrepancies, but the moment he walked into the room, the power balance was unmistakably shifted. His usual control, his aura of authority, was gone. HR opened the session. "We've reviewed departmental reports and supporting evidence. The documents indicate serious mismanagement and favoritism. We need full transparency." The manager stammered. I don't know what you're implying. The reports are minor issues. Exaggerated." She leaned forward slightly, calm but firm. "The discrepancies are documented. Emails, memos, approvals, every instance is traceable. Patterns demonstrate repeated negligence and favoritism." Executives exchanged glances. One whispered softly to another, nodding at the evidence. The manager's face tightened. His voice rose, but it lacked authority. "I assure you, any perception of negligence is mistaken. I've handled this department responsibly." HR cut in, steady and precise. "We've verified the documents. The patterns are clear. Further investigation will determine appropriate consequences, but immediate action may be necessary." The room fell silent. The manager's composure faltered as each executive reviewed the evidence. He tried to argue, to manipulate the narrative, but the facts were unyielding. His carefully constructed image of control was unraveling. She noticed the subtle nods from her colleagues who were present. Allies who had stood with her, silently, were finally validated. Small victories, cumulative and undeniable. By afternoon, HR issued a formal notice. The manager was suspended pending investigation. His authority stripped, at least temporarily. The office breathed collectively. Whispers of relief and astonishment circulated. Her phone buzzed, a direct message from HR. "Thank you for your diligence. Your evidence and composure ensured this process was thorough. Expect follow-up for further steps." Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the intensity of the moment. The manager's reign of intimidation and bias had been exposed, and the consequences were imminent. She glanced at the now-empty manager's office. A small sense of poetic justice filled her chest, though tempered by the awareness of lingering trauma, the stress, the manipulation, and the fear she had endured. Colleagues approached her quietly throughout the day. "We saw what you did. That took courage. You changed things." Finally, someone stood up. Their words were soft, but heavy with acknowledgement. Yet, she knew the process wasn't finished. Institutional change would take time, and not all consequences would be immediate. But the first and most crucial step had been taken. The abuse of authority had been exposed, documented, and verified. Cliffhanger. That evening, as she packed her things, HR sent a final note. "A permanent decision regarding the manager will be communicated tomorrow. Prepare for potential transition into leadership responsibilities." Her heart raced. Justice was coming, but so was responsibility. The next day could change everything. The office felt different that morning. A subtle shift in energy, almost imperceptible to outsiders, but unmistakable to those who had lived through the tension. She arrived early, folder neatly in hand, not for confrontation, but for preparation. Today, she wasn't just surviving, she was stepping into a new role. HR had confirmed she would be considered for leadership responsibilities. The news was exhilarating, but it carried a weight she couldn't ignore. Authority meant visibility, scrutiny, and navigating the same biases she had fought against. Her first task was reviewing ongoing projects. Colleagues greeted her differently now: respect, cautious admiration, and, in some cases, lingering resentment from those loyal to the former manager. She greeted everyone with calm professionalism. "Good morning. Let's start with updates on current projects." A junior analyst approached, glancing nervously. I wanted to say, thank you. For standing up. For making things right." She smiled faintly. "It's not just me. We all played a part. But now it's about keeping the office moving forward, together." Her office phone rang. It was HR. "We're finalizing your transition into leadership. Expect meetings with team members and executives today. Proceed carefully, there may still be resistance." She nodded, taking a deep breath. Transition wasn't just about authority, it was about trust, perception, and dismantling the remnants of the manager's bias. By mid-morning, she gathered the team for a meeting. The atmosphere was charged: anticipation, cautious optimism, and underlying tension. She addressed everyone with steady, measured words. "Team, the past weeks have been challenging. We've faced errors, bias, and mismanagement. But now, we have an opportunity to reset. Transparency, accountability, and collaboration will be our focus." A few skeptical faces remained, but she continued. "I don't want authority for its own sake. I want fairness and clarity. If we work together, we can improve not just our department, but the environment we work in." Her words landed quietly but firmly. Nods appeared. Eyes met hers with renewed trust. Allies from previous weeks showed subtle signs of approval. Resistance, if present, was muted. Later, she reviewed pending projects with her team, gently correcting missteps left by the former manager. The office had been left in disarray, but her methodical approach quickly restored order. Precision and transparency were her tools, and colleagues responded positively. During a break, a colleague whispered, "You've changed the office. It's better. People feel heard now." She smiled faintly. "It's a start. Change takes time." Yet, the day wasn't without subtle challenges. A few employees loyal to the former manager made dismissive comments, tried to undermine meetings, or questioned decisions quietly. Each microaggression was noted, addressed with calm authority, and documented for future reference. Her leadership was being tested, and she met each test with measured patience. By late afternoon, HR called again. "The manager's termination is official. Your leadership role is confirmed. Prepare to oversee the department fully starting next week." She exhaled slowly. Relief, pride, and the weight of responsibility mixed in her chest. Justice had been served, but the cost, the hours of stress, the psychological strain, the constant vigilance, was visible in her reflection. Her team gathered around as she left her desk. "Ready to guide us?" one asked. She met their gaze. "I am. But it's a team effort. We rise together." The day ended quietly, but her mind raced with plans for systemic improvements. Clear reporting structures, transparent promotions, unbiased project assignments. The office had changed, but the work of maintaining fairness was only beginning. Cliffhanger. As she left the office, her phone buzzed. An anonymous message appeared. "Congratulations on today. But not everyone is happy. Watch your back. Change makes enemies." She paused, realizing leadership brought both empowerment and new challenges. The next chapter of her journey was only beginning. The office smelled like fresh coffee and polished determination. She arrived early, purposeful, knowing this was the first full day in her new role. The weight of the past months, the lies, microaggressions, hidden errors, intimidation, still lingered in her chest, but now it was tempered by empowerment. Her team was already present, quietly reviewing notes and preparing for the day. She greeted each person warmly. "Good morning. Let's make today productive and fair." A colleague whispered, half smile on their face. "Feels like a new beginning." She nodded, glancing toward the empty manager's office. It was a symbol, more than a room, the absence of authority that had abused its power. She allowed herself a brief smile. Justice had been served. HR had confirmed that the former manager's termination was official. The investigation revealed clear patterns of favoritism, hidden mismanagement, and attempts to manipulate data. The consequences were real, and they sent a message: abuse of authority could not go unchecked. She called the team together for a morning meeting. Her tone was firm but compassionate. "We've been through a lot. There's still work to do. Policies need reinforcement, and we must remain vigilant for bias and mismanagement. But together, we can make this a department people respect and trust." One colleague raised a hand. "Are we safe from retaliation? From outside pressure?" She met their gaze evenly. "We're protected by transparency, documentation, and collective responsibility. We continue to report concerns through proper channels. That's how we ensure fairness and accountability." As the day progressed, subtle but meaningful changes took hold. Meetings were structured, project assignments were transparent, and decision-making was collaborative. Small victories, once overlooked, became visible. Recognition was fair. Errors were addressed promptly, without shifting blame. By mid-afternoon, she reviewed the office's systems, updating tracking protocols and implementing clear reporting structures. Allies were involved, ensuring that no single person could dominate or manipulate outcomes again. A colleague approached quietly. "I just wanted to say, thank you for taking this on, and for showing it can be done." She smiled faintly, but her eyes betrayed the exhaustion and weight of responsibility. "It's not about me. It's about fairness, about making this place better for everyone. That's the real reward." The manager's absence was palpable, but remnants of his influence lingered. Some employees still whispered, some doubted, some feared change. She met these challenges with patience, consistency, and transparency. Each microaggression, each moment of resistance, was met with clear communication, rules, and unwavering professionalism. By evening, she paused at her office window, looking out at the city below. The sun dipped low, painting the skyline in shades of orange and gold. She allowed herself a quiet moment of reflection. The months of fear, strategy, confrontation, and persistence had led to this, justice tempered with responsibility. Her phone buzzed. A message from HR. "Your leadership has been exemplary. Transition completed successfully. Expect further initiatives to involve you in organizational improvement programs." Her chest tightened with relief and pride. She had not only survived the abuse of authority but had transformed it into opportunity, systemic change, and recognition. Her team gathered for a brief wrap-up meeting. "Today went well," she said, voice calm but confident. "We've restored balance, but our work continues. Fairness, accountability, and transparency will guide every decision." A junior analyst spoke softly. "It feels safe now. Like we can trust the process." She smiled, feeling the weight of emotional resolution settle. Safety and fairness are the foundation. That's what we build on now. As she left the office that evening, the corridors felt lighter, brighter, freer. The battles were hard won, but the lessons were clear. Courage, patience, and strategy could dismantle abuse of power, and collective accountability could restore justice. She paused at the elevator, reflecting on the journey. The manager's reign of intimidation had ended, yes, but more importantly, a culture of fairness and respect had begun. Final reflection. She understood the emotional cost, the stress, the fear, the constant vigilance, but also the bittersweet victory. Resilience had been tested. Justice had been served. Balance, though fragile, was finally restored. The elevator doors closed behind her, carrying her into a world where authority no longer demanded obedience, but earned respect. And she knew, the work of fairness, transparency, and courage would continue, always.